Xbox doesn't like VR.
And they're not the only ones.
Hot take. Xbox. In an interview with Stevivor, this was during the EXO 2019 event. It was just recent. You remember that? Head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, said, "Don't expect Xbox VR anytime soon." There's a lot of weight to that statement.
Yes, there is.
VR is something a lot of people are talking about, especially right now.
Yeah, because there's a brand new game coming out called Half-Life Alyx.
Oh my gosh.
It's basically a continuation of the Half-Life series. And the only way you can play it is if you buy some goggles you got to strap to your face. So, yeah, people are all over the place on
We'll
this.
get into the whole Half-Life Alyx thing a little bit more later. For now, let's look at Phil Spencer's exact sort of comment on this, on this issue. "I have some issues with VR," he said. "It's isolating, and I think of games as a communal, kind of together experience. We're responding to what our customers are asking for, and nobody is asking for VR. The vast majority of our customers know if they want a VR experience, there's places to go for those. We see the volumes of those on PC and other places."
End quote right there, yeah. Big quote, huh? But he had a lot to say. This wasn't just I don't like VR. It was, I really think I don't like VR and no one else likes VR. Like, he really wanted to go out there.
Well, is this true, Shane? Does everyone hate VR?
Well, no. There's a lot of people that like VR.
Yeah?
PlayStation has seen some minor success with the PlayStation VR headset. In fact, the best-selling headset on the market for average consumers is the PlayStation VR. There are a lot of people there that are getting into that market. So, of course, Phil Spencer from Xbox camp is like, no one likes VR because we don't have a headset. And if we don't have a headset, it doesn't mean it's real, right?
To be fair, while it's selling the best on the PlayStation platform, it's still only the user base is about 4% for the owners of PlayStation 4. Only about 4% of those actually have the VR headset, and whether or not they're really adopting a lot of the library of games for that platform is still kind of up in the air. Yeah.
But the realistic look of this is, folks, if you want to play many of the games that are available on PlayStation VR, you will not play them on any other home console platform. Outside of the Oculus Go, which has some variations. By the way, if you don't know what Oculus Go is or Oculus Quest, those are standalone Oculus headsets that don't require the use of a cell phone or anything like that. It's all self-contained. I mean, I think you still need a cell phone to buy the games, but it's weird. Regardless, if you have a PlayStation VR and there are games on that platform, you will not be able to play those on an Xbox. So, of course, Phil Spencer would be very inclined to say, we don't think people like it. And the numbers, I don't think he's too far off. I think the numbers do reflect that the average consumer isn't really going out of their way to pick this up. This is a hardcore gaming item that very few people are into right now.
Yeah, and we're just about to jump into the next gen of consoles, so they have to make these decisions right now. And this is a very firm foot down. So this isn't like the first time Xbox has sort of talked about VR. Phil Spencer, I should say, has talked about VR, because in February of 2016, Phil Spencer, I almost said Spill Fencer again. I do that all the time. He was asked about whether or not VR would be coming to the Xbox One platform. And he said, would we ever do our own VR device? We could if we thought we had something unique to add. So I guess they didn't think that was a thing. I don't think the unique ad is to plug into the Xbox One console. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like Microsoft, I mean, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but Microsoft actually has invested heavily in augmented reality and mixed reality. So there's two different things. Augmented reality is HoloLens, which is essentially this lens you stick on your face and then it puts 3D objects all over the place.
Sounds like the future.
It really does. That is something that they've been working on, but it seriously seems to be only for like developers and architects and people that are making cars that need to look at them in a weird way. It doesn't seem to be grabbing mass appeal. The other one they did, which was mixed reality, which was supposed to be a mix between that kind of technology and virtual reality. The problem was that I've used mixed reality. In fact, I've used mixed reality at Microsoft's own offices in Canada. And when they showed it to me, it was really cool for a VR headset, but it didn't actually show any mixed reality things where you would actually see AR implementations. Maybe developers really haven't used that yet, but Microsoft has invested money, but it clearly looks like, at least as far as Phil Spencer.
It's Phil Spencer too.
Yeah, at least as far as Phil Spencer is concerned, this is not going towards Xbox.
Right.
And you know what? Gotta be honest, they haven't got the gaming aspect right. You know what I mean? They haven't really, they're not expanding in the gaming market. They're trying their best. So adding more things to make things confusing, just like what happened with the Kinect. When the Kinect came out, it really destroyed them.
I'm glad you're taking it here because I wanted to talk about this. Yes, during the beginning of this console generation, we saw them stumble because of the addition of the Kinect to the Xbox One. A lot of people were like, I don't need this. I don't want these weird motion controls for my gaming experience. We're seeing the next wave of consoles coming very soon. And it seems like we may have a little bit of a flip-a-do as far as what the major console players are offering, because it seems like Xbox Scarlet could be the hardcore gamer box. It's dedicated specifically to your high-end gaming experience. Whereas if the PlayStation 5 is focusing, even if it's not majorly, but a little bit on PlayStation VR, we know they're bringing the PlayStation VR currently forward into the next gen of consoles. There's also rumors about another iteration of the headset, like a major revamp of the headset. So what I'm getting at is just, could Sony be the one that is kind of kneecapped by this additional hardware focus, right?
As long as they don't have it bundled with the system at launch. That's all that really matters here, folks. See, I think there's this little bit of a disconnect about the Kinect and the PlayStation 4 when it came out. Folks, when the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out, you could only buy an Xbox One with the Kinect. So the price was a lot more expensive. Plus, unlike a VR headset that we have the PSVR, we went out and bought one, we can keep it to the side and it doesn't watch you. Kinect was always watching you no matter what you did. It was always listening to you no matter what you did. If you are any way scared about your own privacy, Kinect was a very crazy thing, because not only could it register your face and figure out who you were and log you into the game automatically, but it could also like read your body movements and stuff. Very few pieces of tech do that, all right? You go out and buy any kind of like Google Home device, it's not doing that. So Kinect was very advanced for its time. Now, look, you're probably not going to see another Kinect thing in the future because the people that actually founded that technology, believe it or not, actually got purchased by Apple. So unless Microsoft wants to work with them, that's why the newer Apple phones actually do that whole thing. It's pretty crazy.
They originally approached Nintendo with that tech back in the day, and then they wound up getting absorbed, I believe, into Microsoft, and then their tech dramatically changed. So the Kinect was actually much better, the first iteration of it, and then when it was absorbed into Microsoft, they're like, it's too expensive. So that's why the first Kinect wasn't as great as many people thought it was going to be, right?
So there was ideas there, but what you need to consider is this: when the PlayStation 5 comes out, when that initial system is released, it cannot have a PSVR attached to it. They could have a bundle, okay? That would be fine later down the line, or maybe even a secondary, but they need to sell more of the PlayStation 5 base. Now, look, what's very important for Sony to do here is take the people that already have the PlayStation VR headsets and move that along to the future, because the PlayStation VR headsets are actually quite good. They're very high frame rate. The problem is the PlayStation 4 right now, it just can't do it. It can't get where it needs to be. It's just not that powerful.
I have a feeling that tech is not going to be good enough for much longer, because we are seeing so many other headsets that are out there. So hopefully, we know they're carrying over the current PSVR, but hopefully there's another iteration of it to kind of like allow it to compete with things like the Index. Now, speaking of the Index, I think if we're going to have a PSVR talk and an Xbox VR talk, we have to talk about the looming possible behemoth that is Half-Life Alyx.
Yes.
Right? So let's say Half-Life Alyx is released, and it's released in VR, not only on PC platforms, but also on console platforms. Now, if this title is made available for consoles, and there's only one console that plays it, and this game is basically like, let's say it's the equivalent of the bigness that was the Orange Box. I know it's just one game, but let's say it's a real hot tamale, and a lot of people don't want to invest in a PC, but a lot of people have PS5s.
Yeah.
Right?
See what we're getting at, folks?
That would be the place where you'd play it. And then little Joey on the end of the street who bought an Xbox 2 Scarlet Shabadoo doesn't have a VR headset.
That's true.
You know, it doesn't get to play Half-Life Alyx. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And I feel like this comment came out from Phil Spencer before the Half-Life Alyx thing was concrete. This was at XO19.
He's probably reading his paper. And
he's like, crap! I should have left it open.
Should have bit my tongue for a little bit longer. Yeah, you know what? That's the reality of the situation. I know a lot of people out there are like, what are the chances of Valve releasing a game on the PlayStation? Pretty good, actually.
Well, and we can't forget. This just popped into my mind that Valve was working pretty closely with PlayStation. PlayStation.
That's right.
Right. At first, Valve was a little wary about working with the PS3 because it was hard to program games for the PS3. But then eventually they wound up, like the ecosystem was like, oh, you can we can bring over some of our Steam tools into that ecosystem. And they wound up developing a version of Portal 2 that was cross-compatible with, I believe, Mac and with Windows as well. And that's how I played it with my friend.
I had a friend come over and he was playing on the PlayStation 3 while I played on the console, or on my PC. It was fantastic. It really was. Sony and Valve actually have a pretty decent working relationship, where the same relationship with Microsoft can't be said so much because we really haven't seen that. Now, look, if you're going to get into real history, and I mean real history, you would know that Gabe Newell is actually one of the people that originally founded, or worked at least at the very beginning, with Microsoft, and used to work with Bill Gates' wife. Funny little thing that many people don't remember. So he has a long relationship with them as well. The thing is, if they're going to release Half-Life Alyx, and they're actually going to have it exist on a console right now, the console it could be appearing on would be the PlayStation 5. But why limit ourselves there? What if they were to release it on the PlayStation 4 as well? Think about that. I'm not saying it work. Look. We already know the numbers are there.
The PC specs are like.
We know.
Yeah,
we know.
I know. Well, we've had. Okay. Well, okay. Weird. But on the original Xbox, we had Half-Life 2.
That's right.
We had That's insane. Yes. That's insane to me. If they were able to make that work, then maybe there's a way that this could work. I'm not expecting.
Keep in mind, the original Half-Life was on PlayStation 2, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so they actually, in the same generation, they're like, oh, let's put the sequel on here. Those consoles, if you kick them hard enough, look, let's not even start this, okay? We know that we can get crazy games working on the Switch that should not be working on the Switch. We've got Doom 2016. We've got all that stuff.
Are you confirming Half-Life Alyx for Labo VR? Sir?
No.
Please tell me you are.
That's not happening because that doesn't have the controllers. Don't even start. That's not where... What I'm saying
You staple it to your face.
There is a possibility, folks, that Half-Life Alyx could be released on a system like the PlayStation 4, simply because there's already an established base there. Sure. I'm not saying it's actually going to happen, it's just the possibilities of such. If it's going to go to any console at all, the only one it can go to is the one with a VR headset. Don't even start with me on Labo. Labo,
I was going to say the Virtual Boy.
Really? That's where you think it will go? I mean, does it even have enough buttons? It doesn't even matter. That's not a point. The issue here is that right now, if they are to really be curious about getting this game on as many platforms as possible, which, by the way, Valve makes their own VR headset called the Valve Index. They also work with Vive, but they're not limiting it to those headsets. They've already established it's going to work with mixed reality, and it's going to work on Oculus. So they're working pretty hard. Now, I don't think you're going to get the Half-Life Alyx to work on Oculus Quest. It would be great if that could happen. I just don't see it happening because the Quest is seriously not that powerful. But on the PlayStation 4, you've got some power there. So there is a possibility. It would look muddy and the graphics would be very, very minimal, but it could work. And I think that it would be smart for like a Valve to actually
I feel like we've leaned heavily in the PlayStation direction now, but this was an Xbox conversation. Yes. In the end, do you think, like, all the Half-Life Alyx stuff, that's so grain of salty, right? But in the end, do you truly feel like, or do you feel like the Xbox will have an issue, Scarlet will have an issue with not having VR? You know, out of the gate.
My hope is that Microsoft and the folks at Xbox think about future-proofing the system and think about future abilities. You always see this. A system might have a USB port or might have some weird expansion slot. It might have something that doesn't actually get used, but that's for future-proofing. That's for the idea that something might happen in the future to prevent the system from becoming stagnant. And what I'm hoping is Microsoft with the next Xbox isn't just rushing for power, because if you rush for power, that's not going to work. Remember, the PlayStation 4 didn't win because it was more powerful. It had like a little bit of more power.
We can look at the PlayStation 3 to the Xbox 360.
That's right.
I mean, it took them a while to climb back, but they were the most powerful machine, right?
Yeah.
The Xbox 360 had like a better library and a better ecosystem.
The Nintendo 64 has a far better graphics processor than the original PlayStation.
Sure.
The GameCube had far better graphics compared to the PlayStation 2.
Oh, yeah.
Super-powered systems don't always sell. What does is the games. Yeah. And when you're talking about experience of those games with PlayStation VR, if that actually does take off, and that's the million-dollar question. I think, personally, at this point, the market's pointing to not happening, so I agree with Phil on that. But if there's going to be a game that's going to change it and redefine the industry and make it something, It's gonna be Valve with Half-Life Alyx. Honestly, that's the Super Mario Brothers.
That's what we're waiting for. That's the killer app that we're waiting for. Well, what do you guys think about all this VR chit chat? I know a lot of you guys don't necessarily have VR headsets right now. Would one of these consoles having VR compatibility be a reason to pick that up for you?
Or do you feel that, well, I don't like VR and I'm never gonna like VR and I get motion sickness in it? Let us know what you think in the comments below.